Hello, hello. Welcome back to the show. It is Christine Jewell. And today I got a guest for you guys. I'm excited to dive into this conversation. We're going to be talking about wealth building strategies. We're going to be talking about just the art of consistency, what consistency creates in our life, compounding interest in so many ways. We're going to be talking about high performance leadership, so much more. So I'm happy to welcome Antonio Vaglica to the show. Antonio, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. How we doing?
Awesome. So Antonio was introduced to me by a mutual acquaintance. And I remember at the time I was looking for somebody who could help come around us as some wise counsel around wealth building strategies, business building strategies. And so I'm a big fan of referrals, connecting with great people in the industry. And a little bit about Antonio. He is a dynamic 28-year-old entrepreneur. He has built a multi-seven-figure consulting business by mastering the art of business optimization and tax efficiency. Don't we all love tax efficiency? His proven strategies have helped countless business owners streamline operations and keep more of hard-earned profits through strategic tax planning and wealth building solutions. What I really like about you is I see you as sort of a disruptor. I love on your website, it says you are the anti-advisor. And tell us, I'm just going to start there. What is an anti-advisor?
Sure. And I apologize if I speak more bluntly than most on this podcast. But
the only thing we don't do is throw foul language out there. But cool. Other than that, we're good.
I'll keep it PG. Simply put, the financial services industry is lagging behind pretty aggressively in the world of banking, financial advisory, tax prep, accounting, all these types of things. And everyone is designing their business model around how they can go about giving you advice to sell you products that make them the most money and save them the most amount of time. But you as a service-based business owner, you need strategy because your business is your baby. It's your best performing asset. It's your retirement plan, all that type of stuff. And so I got sick and tired of watching people ultimately paying what I call a stupid tax by blindly trusting their professionals. Because you as an entrepreneur, you are simply there to focus on revenue generating activity, growing your team, putting out fires, being in your zone of genius. And a lot of people end up being their own accountant, financial advisor, or leveraging other people that are not in alignment with where they're going. Simply put, that's why we exist. I sit at the helm of all of that strategy to make sure my clients are getting unbiased advice and then ensuring that the professionals that are in alignment, that are on the team, or on alignment and implementing those strategies so that the client is experiencing the most amount of wealth possible. So that's why I call myself the anti-advisor, because yes, we do operate under the umbrella of financial services. Part of what we do is financial advisory, but I do it so contrarian to the business model that most people create because everyone's trying to sell you something where I'm simply trying to give you unbiased feedback to really grow your business.
Okay, I love so much about that. First of all, I love the countercultural, contrary to the way everybody else is doing it, because I'm all about that. I believe that we are called to be zigging when everyone else is zagging and really choose the narrow gate and be innovators and disruptors of industry. So I love that. First of all, how did you get into this? Why? Where did it come from?
Yeah,
Have you always been in finance? I mean, I know. Tell us a little bit about what brought you to this place.
It's kind of crazy because I was just talking to somebody prior to this podcast that yes, I love what I do. I'm very passionate about what we do, but I'm really more passionate about getting results for people. So I build I have multiple service-based companies that don't always operate under the umbrella of financial services, just because my zone of genius is serving people at the highest level, and I do that through the vehicle of entrepreneurship and getting people results. The reason why I got into this industry specifically is this industry kind of got thrown on my lap. I played baseball my entire life. That was plan A, B, and C. I talk about it a lot on my podcast, a lot of other podcasts. But my goal of playing professional baseball was kind of halted by COVID. And instead of persevering through that adversity, which I didn't have much discipline and I didn't really have cultivated the ability to handle adversity back in the day. And so with that, I quit on myself during that time. And I resorted to depression, drugs, alcohol, bad relationships, terrible time of my life. And through that, I got back on the wagon of consistency and winning small and personal development. And through that, I got into the world of sales in financial services, primarily selling life insurance and investments to start. And When you're 22 years old at the time, that's when I got into the industry, and you're trying to teach people what to do with their finances when you're broke, there's a lot of misalignment, and it's almost virtually impossible to be successful in that. Somehow I persevered through it. I promised myself I'd never quit on myself again after the baseball thing. And so I stayed consistent. We started a podcast. Through that, when you do 500 podcast episodes with 7-8 figure business owners, really cool stuff happens. So that sparks a lot of joint ventures, a lot of good client relationships, which ultimately allowed us to, get away from those companies and build our own business model. And now at this point, we own a portfolio of about 7 companies that are all doing service-based businesses and really designed to just serve people at the highest level. So to answer your question simply, financial services has been like my professional background just because that's all I've known since I got into the world of self-employment and entrepreneurship. But I really started to broaden the scope of like being a master at getting people results in any vertical possible.
So what do you love the most about what you're doing right now? Getting people results? Like, is there an element of the business that you love the most that really fires you up?
I think the most exciting thing to me is connecting people. So for me, I'm able to identify problems, and then I've built a network of solutions to basically, introduce people to the solutions of their problems. We've been working together. There's a couple times that we've done that as well. 2025, we'll do that on a much larger scale as well. I'm very excited for that. And so for me to be able to cultivate relationships where I can then connect other people, they make magic, and in a mutually beneficial relationship, that's my way of being selfishly selfless. Because over time, when you guys go make magic together with somebody else, my name comes up in conversation and that goodwill is deposited into the world. And that's how I intend to build an empire over time, is through just depositing goodwill for no other expectation other than seeing somebody else win. And I know that's how I'm going to win long term as well. So that's what I love about this business model, is because I get a lot of amazing people come through on the front end, and I learn more from them than they learn from me over time. And then I get to connect them to other people to be a facilitator of amazing humans.
Yes. I love it. I love it. You said the word relation. I mean, I'm hearing, I say this often. Relationships are the currency, people. Like, relationships are the real currency. And what you're saying is totally in alignment with kingdom principles of lead with service, serve others, the generosity quotient of just lead with value, lead with giving, and it comes back in multiples. But we have to be so careful of, is that really the motive of our heart, or are we giving to get, right?
Yep.
But I wanted to make sure that we circled back to that, because I just see so many business leaders struggle. Obviously, I'm doing executive coaching. I work with a lot of CEOs, founders, just high-level executives that are just struggling in their business with revenue or referrals or business coming in. And it's like things are drying up, and there's something that has shifted inside of them, and they're going to get, right? They're going to that conference to take or to get, and they're not really going with that heart of, what do I get to give to this room? What do I get to really pour into the space, right? Knowing that it'll come back to them, but that's not the motive.
And the market feels that energy now. A lot of people, no one's blind to that energy anymore. So people can understand that coming through the phone or in person. And so the way that I look at it, because I always try and dial things back to like logic, math, and science. And so the way that I've reverse engineered it is, relationships, I view them as a bank account. And most people, specifically in their 20s, my age, everyone's trying to withdraw from an empty bank account, because you're trying to gain success so early and not really, bide your time and earn your stripes. And so everyone's always truly just asking so early instead of depositing into that bank account. Everyone's trying to withdraw from an empty bank account. My goal is to deposit. I usually never even ask for a withdrawal, but you overwhelm people with so much value that they feel compelled to give value back. And there's going to be times where if you commit to that principle and that philosophy, 6 out of every 10 times people aren't going to reciprocate. But the 4 people that do, that relationship becomes exponentially larger than getting burned 6 times. Yeah. So like, for example, I'm radical about sending people books. This is a huge strategy that if people are listening to this, highly recommend this strategy, because one, books are incredible to serve others. You're listening. The reason why I read books is not just to get downloads of information for myself, but also to be able to recommend to people when they're in a certain season of their life. Why I'm not the expert. Let me go refer you to the person that actually wrote the book on it and referring that. But what I like gifting people books with, selfishly, is because when somebody reads a book that you've gifted them and it creates a lot of value in their life, they associate the value with you, not the author. Correct. So over time, that starts to deposit significant amounts of goodwill over time.
So
I like to send people like things that are important to them when I'm listening to them. I'm thinking through clients and podcast guests, things like that, or just connecting people, finding ways to deposit value into those relationships. You're going to receive dividends from that 2 to 3 years later. So you got to start laying the groundwork now and just keeping multiple irons in the fire. And you don't know where it's going to pay off, but you can trust in the system that it will pay off.
yes. Sowing and reaping, sowing and reaping. What are the latest 5 books? I love this, by the way. I do the same thing. I love books. I love books. It's like lock me in a cabin with my books and my journals and some trails to go riding on. And I'm a happy camper. What are some of the latest books on whatever, leadership, finance, whatever's burning on your heart? I'm always looking for awesome resources to share.
So I'm actually in a season of my life right now where I'm rereading books instead of finding new ones. Because I think a lot of times in our life, we need to be reminded, not learn anything new, because the information's there. But a couple of books that I've been really deep into of recent. This one I carry with me everywhere I go. Arguably the best book of all time, besides the Bible.
Yes.
A Happy Pocket Full of Money. Obviously, the Bible is the number one book of all time, in my opinion. I'm assuming people that listen to this podcast probably feel the same way. Another great book, tactical for your business, is Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. Incredible book to get super tactical. He brings philosophy around it, plus the tactical strategies to really help yourself not build a business that you don't want to run away from. There's a really good book that I read by John Mark Comer called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. It's an entrepreneur, spiritual, Christian value book that really helps you, not try and get so overwhelmed on the day-to-day in the world of entrepreneurship, because it's very easy to look at a thing, like look at the chart daily and let your emotions fluctuate. And then there's another really good book called At Your Best by Carrie Nieuwhof that I liked a lot. It's really about reverse engineering your day around when your energy is the highest level, not based off timings. So like you'll be able to find certain time slots that are that energy, but we're all, we all consist of like 3 to 4 hours a day where we actually have a green zone of energy. And that's where we should be doing the highest output activity, because that's exponentially going to produce results more than just like those yellow and red zones that we have. Those are 5 books for me.
I love it. I just said Buy Back Your Time to a CFO that I coach, and I was like, this will change your life. This book will change your life. And I that's definitely one that I'm rereading as well. I've not heard of At Your Best. However, as a high performance coach, I can totally agree with that. And I have found my sweet spot is like between 12 and 4. Yep. That is it. My husband's is 5 a.m. till 10 a.m. So we're totally flipped. By the time I'm turning on, he's turning off, But
that's perfect synergy right there.
Yeah, it is actually really good. So I love that, because again, that's disrupting the way that we're programmed to think about work and our days, and this whole like 8 to 5, 8 to 6, it's just dropping into that flow state. So I love all of that. And we're going to put the links to those books down below as well. I want to go back to Happy Pocket Full of Money, Biblical Principles for Wealth Building. Since you are in the wealth sector and you're doing things differently than everyone else, are there any principles or concepts that you coach or talk clients through that maybe are countercultural and that come from biblical principles? Or not, but I thought, well, this is the whole thing. I've been recently very, very fascinated with God's blueprint for increasing wealth. To me, is like prosperity is our natural state. It's supposed to be. We keep getting in the way of that. So I just was curious. I wanted to throw that out there.
It's a great question. It's very thought provoking too. I think one thing that's now becoming a lot more mainstream and popular, thanks to entrepreneurs like yourself getting the message out, is that God doesn't want you to be poor. God wants you to have wealth and abundance. It's your God-given right to, because if you're a God-first human, if you're a heart-centered human, your obligation is to obtain more resources so that you can help more people. That's where the scarcity versus abundance mindset, everyone has it misconstrued at times, is because we see some bad actors that are insanely wealthy, that are doing horrible things. There's a ton other good people that are doing incredible things with their wealth. So I urge people to obtain wealth, because life isn't all about money, but if you don't have any, it's going to be all about surviving and trying to obtain money. The ask and you shall receive concept, the happy pocket full of money goes a little bit deeper into the quantum side. And a lot of people refute the quantum physics versus the Christian theology. I think
love
they're
it. They
one and the
back each
same.
other up.
I agree. I think it only further corroborates.
I do too, 100%.
Happy pocket full of money goes a little bit deeper into saying that you've already received it in some way, shape, or form in any alternate universe. So I basically say is like, if I've already received it, why not receive it in this life, in this universe? So it's really about like the way that I leverage biblical principles the most is a lot of my clients. It's not mandatory to be a Christian to become a client. It just so happens that a lot of my clients end up being Christians because we're aligning core values.
Correct.
That being said, a lot of times we work with only 7, 8, 9-figure business owners. And over time, the biggest struggle that you have is actually too much opportunity, not too little, which ends up being it comes in the form of shiny objects. Like there's shiny objects in the form of opportunities elsewhere, taking your eye off the ball of what you're really good at. And so a lot of times people will come to me and be like, hey, I have this opportunity. It's going to make me tens of millions of dollars, but it doesn't always align with biblical principles or your core values or your desire to buy back your time in your business. And that's where it's my job to help people think through it objectively and be like, hey, if money didn't exist, would you actually have made this decision? And that's really where we tie things down to their principles and core values. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yes. I'm going to circle back. So I think that the first one you talked about already was give. Have that heart of service, plant seeds, build relationships. Those are totally principles for wealth building and just increase in every area of life. But I wanted to circle back to the ask and you shall receive thing because that is noted so many times scripturally that it is already given to us. Actually, it was already destined for us. That was already the plan, but we get in the way. We start, messing it up. We start misusing position, influence, impact, whatever. And we start doubting, and doubt will block the flow of anything into our life. So I just wanted to circle back because to your point, there's a lot of people that are like, oh, quantum physics, that's weird, or biblical, that's too rigid. It's like if you actually read and observe and pray over it or meditate on it, quantum physics just affirms a lot of what scripture has already spoken and then describes it. But for us, that's been huge too. And part of it is also just saying like, thank you that it's already here. I think one of the things we miss is like how many resources are right under our feet. Like we are standing on piles of resources, relationships being the biggest one that we don't recognize, but okay. I love those things. And the other thing I wanted to circle back to that you said earlier, because it's so important. And I was literally having a conversation the other day with someone who runs a financial business. To your point, people selling financial products that are broke or don't know how to manage finances themselves, right? And this is not, I think it's like a call to integrity of whatever industry we're in. Are we living, breathing, embodying what we're talking about? And I guess where I'm going with that is, you said strategy. One of the things you guys lead with is strategy. And when I talk to people, even if I look at how they're building businesses or building their marriages or building their families, they're actually not being strategic about, it's like, okay, we're married. We're just going to have a great relationship forever. Like it'll just take care of itself, just date night every once in a while, or we're going to build this business, but they don't really have strategy. And in Antonio, it's not even like small businesses. I'm talking about high eight-figure businesses, right? I want to talk about strategy a little bit. When you look at somebody or somebody comes to you, what are the first things that you're looking at or conversations that you're having with them from that eagle's view or general's view of the landscape?
Sure. Yeah. So just to preface, a lot of the companies that I work with are like the mid to high 8-figure businesses, a lot of like blue collar style businesses, $40 to $50 million construction companies, pretty much solely founder led companies.
Okay.
So they haven't like hired a CEO to run the business. They're still operating inside of it. And so with that, I'm working directly with the founder. And I think a huge part of entrepreneurship and what I do as well is helping people just get out of their own way. Because as an entrepreneur, we're all inside of our own echo chambers. We think these thoughts all the time. And then even if we have business partners, we're just thinking the same thoughts and bouncing them off to each other all the time. That's where people hire us to just be that unbiased third party where it's like, I don't have any financial gain on whether you make this decision or not, because truthfully, you're just paying me a flat fee regardless. I'm just here to actually tell you, here's what you told me, and this is what you're telling me that could be different from it. That being said, from a strategy standpoint, the number one superpower in your business as a founder, being a founder-led business, is the founder's emotions, the ability to stay passionate, sell the product, sell the services, all that type of stuff. The number one detriment to your business is typically your emotions as well, letting them get the best of you. That's where I use strategy, where I look at what you want as an outcome and I reverse engineer it through logic, math, and science of how can we stay consistent on a daily basis of what we actually have to do to get there. And if we can hit those key performance indicators consistently, you can use your emotions as a superpower. Because I don't want to take those emotions away, but I want you to leverage it for the well-being of everyone and being in service to people. And so that's where, when we're looking at financial decisions, a lot of people make erratic financial decisions due to emotions. Look at it like and there's a study that Fidelity did in the stock market, right? And they basically looked at the history of accounts, and across time that people have had with them. And the best performing accounts over time during down years are accounts where people forgot their passwords or dead people.
Because they just weren't
looking, right? Yeah. And so that's where most people, they use their emotions, like, oh, I have fear, I'm going to sell, or I feel I'm going to buy. Stick to the plan. But first you need to have a plan. And that's where, hiring Christine, Mark, executive coaching is huge, because now you have a business plan and you can stick to it. And that's where, when we dial back the financials, it's like, okay, you tell me you want to get here. Logic, math, and science says all you have to do is stay consistent on a micro basis to do this. Let's just do it and just execute. And there's a lot of times where you're not going to feel like it, just in life, right? When you exercising, spiritual, all those types of things. That's what consistency wins means to me, which is the name of our podcast.
Right.
I have it tattooed on my forearm. That's everything for us, because how can I dial down the large goal to the micro of what I can do today to virtually guarantee the results?
Yeah. So good. We need wise counsel. By the way, that is a proverb that is also a biblical principle. Surround yourself with people who are level-headed, who align with your values and principles and know where you're going and can pull you off the cliff when you're about to jump. We all do it. We all get emotional, best decisions and worst decisions. So I love that. I love that. You keep saying logic, math, and science. I'm hearing get a plan in place, follow the plan, stick to the plan, have wise counsel around you, recalibrate, refocus as needed.
I say it all the time because I think sometimes the best advice is the redundant one.
Yeah.
Like, things don't change. It's just like, hey, just stay consistent. Like,
yeah.
I was thinking about this today, actually. It's like, I was at the gym and I heard this gentleman, older gentleman, you could tell he was a very successful gentleman. And he was talking to these other people that were looking to be mentored by him. They were just like, you could tell that they were really asking him questions to hear his counsel. And he was talking about eat the frog principles and just staying consistent. And I'm like, that guy has been doing that for 50 years. The people hundreds of years ago have been saying the same thing. So the principles haven't really changed. So why are we trying to overcomplicate it? And so that's why I say logic, math, and science all the time.
Why are we trying to overcomplicate it?
Yep, exactly. You know what I mean? Like, why can't I just stay? I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. So how can I just legitimately create a plan and stay consistent, course correct when I need to? Because it is hard enough. The world of entrepreneurship, the world of high performance is so hard. Even trying to be a high performer in your spiritual life and be connected with God. If you're not having that constant tension, call me, because I'd love to know how you're doing it. But sometimes the constant tension's fun because that's the adventure of the spiritual world at the same time.
Totally.
And so that's where I'm leveraging a set of non-negotiables in my life when it comes to my habits, because I know if I show up, I'll be able to get tapped in and actually experience results over time, because I know more times than not, I probably don't want to show up.
Yeah, totally. Self-discipline, fruit of the spirit. I love that you talked about non-negotiables, one of my favorite topics of all time, creating the structure so that you can drop into flow. I always say you can't have flow state actually without some structure. You can't have a river without banks. So what are some of those non-negotiables for you?
So I've actually, I don't know why my brain works this way, but if there's no specific structure, typically through an acronym or something, it just won't work.
You like acronyms. You're one of those people. You like acronyms. Okay.
So I created a system called Build, and I don't know anyone that has this system, so I'll coin it my system. So basically this is a system that every night I'll write this out, and now I can do it in my head. It's just a part of my, my habits at this point. But if somebody's just getting started to try and get on the consistency train, here's what I recommend. Every night before you go to bed, write out Build in a vertical line. B stands for body. So what am I going to do the next day for my body? Am I working out? You're working out and exercising. It doesn't have to be rigorous working out. Exercising is one of the most important non-negotiables for every single person, 100%. Whether you're an entrepreneur or not. Staying healthy is your God-given right. to do.
Mm-hmm.
So what am I doing for my body? That's huge. You is you in build. So you means, what is it that I wanted to do? Because as an entrepreneur, I'm building my business around the life that I want to live. So I'm first, before
Hopefully.
scheduling, sometimes I've built a prison, but buy back your time and leveraging Dan Martell's principles, I've built my business around the life I want to live. So before I schedule meetings, I schedule things that I actually want to do first, so that I have my non-negotiables taken care of. Because ultimately, if you're not doing that, it's going to be soul sucking when your business just becomes another job for yourself. I stands for income. What is it that actually is going to produce my income forward? What are my like sales KPIs? How many appointments am I setting? How many deals do I need to close? How many team members do I need to hire? All those types of things. L stands for love or relationships. How am I deepening relationships? How am I building new ones? How am I fostering old ones? Am I calling my mom? Like for me, my new non-negotiable this year, I live away from home. I live in Tampa. My family's in New York. I call my mom once a week minimum. My dad as well, my grandfather. It is a non-negotiable for me to make sure that I'm calling family. I wish I started that much earlier, to be honest with you. And then D stands for development. What are my inputs on the personal development side? Radical about my personal development. What am I reading? What am I listening to? It is so easy to listen. Like we almost have to like flood ourselves with like toxic amounts of positivity to counteract the overwhelming amount of negativity that's hitting us in this world.
It is everywhere.
that's I'm very big about protecting what gets input into my brain, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
No.
if you're doing that system, all you have to do is stay consistent on the micro, and you look back 6 months from now, like, oh my gosh, like I'm achieving results through not doing anything overwhelming, but I'm just showing up every single day. That's the system I've created.
Yeah, totally. One of the books that I love that I wrote it down, Build. One of the books that changed my life early on when I was diving into personal development was The Compound Effect. I don't know if you ever read that, but super simple, tiny book. I just recommended it to one of the younger. I say younger. I'm 48. Okay. I just hit level 48. But I was like, it's simple. It's the compound effect, of just these small, tiny things. And it doesn't take a long time.
It's so funny you say that, and sorry to cut you off, but I've literally copied the compound effect and Atomic Habits, and that's how I created the system. That's how I don't consider myself somebody that I don't create much original intellectual property, but I take pieces from people that are incredibly smart, and then I throw my own flavor on it, where I try and be the best copycat possible of people who are already successful. And
of course,
the compound, is it James Clear and Ryan Hardy, or I don't know who writes the compound effect, but yeah.
No, Darren Hardy.
Darren Hardy, yes.
Ryan Holiday has some great books too on like self-discipline. Anyways, we could go just talk about books, but it's so true though. And I just want to encourage that. I speak to a lot of people that are constantly overwhelmed. I think overwhelm is a lot of people's natural state right now because they just default, because y'all are not protecting what goes into your portals of your ears. There is just constant noise, and constant noise creates confusion. So we got to get some clarity going on. So I love that. I want to circle back as we kind of start to wrap. Number one, what are some of the biggest challenges that you see with people that are coming to you, who are reaching out? What would you say are like the biggest challenges that they're facing? Are there commonalities? Obviously there are. We all have that with people that come to us, right? I could say mine in my sleep with my guys or my ladies. So tell us a little bit about where your people are when they come to you.
I would say that one of the biggest pain points people are experiencing when they come to me for what I do professionally is they're typically paying way too much in taxes, more than they need to be. And I've come to find first that I fix the tax problem. That's pretty easy, but I want to fix the profitability problem on top of that. And where most people have a struggle is they don't understand their unit level economics for the business, and they try and scale too rapidly. If it doesn't work on the smallest scale, it's only going to blow up even more on the largest scale.
Oh, please say that again. Say that again.
Right? So like if your unit level economics, meaning what I sell, if it costs me more to produce what I sell, I'm going to lose more money if I scale my business. So there's a lot of times where I come to people where more revenue is arguably the worst solution that could ever happen in your business, because it's only going to make your system break even more. Your fulfillment's not baked in, especially for coaching companies like yourself. If you don't have the fulfillment baked in, your clients end up not being happy. You lose a bunch of goodwill in the marketplace. That's not tangible things that people can feel unless they're actually playing in the arena. So that being said, tactically, most people that I come to are 7-8 figure entrepreneurs. they're paying at least hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes to the government. The IRS is the silent partner we've never asked for in our business. Mm-hmm. So how can I take the IRS out as a partner in my business and keep them silent at the same time? Mm-hmm. But I have to do that strategically, because if I don't, I leave myself vulnerable for multiple things. So what I mean by that, I don't ever want to run tax strategy at the sake of running it all through my business and losing profitability through the business. Because that's where most people go wrong, is like, all right, cool, I'm just going to write everything off. Great. You paid no money in taxes. You don't have a business. You have no profit. No one's going to buy your business. And good luck getting a loan from the bank, because banks want to see profit. Mm-hmm. So how can I keep my business profitable, to have enterprise value to sell? How can I keep my ability to be bankable? Because the bank's money in good scenarios is the best money I can possibly use. We talk about it all the time, Christine, without disclosing any private information. Mm-hmm. I know we're obviously averse to taking on bad debt, which everyone should be. But if we can leverage the banks, if we can leverage the banks to purchase great assets that pay us with good debt service coverage, we'd be foolish not to take advantage of all those opportunities that are asymmetrically larger, because the bank has more money than me. Very well, simply put. How can I do all that while still paying virtually $0 to the government, instead of giving a 40% rebate back in the form of taxes every year? Think about that. If you take a 40% haircut on your profit every year, think about how that erodes your ability. Let's use Darren Hardy's principles, right? The compound effect works great positively. It works double as worse negatively. The negative momentum compounding is much worse than the positive is very hard to go up that momentous battle, that momentous hill, but negative compounds real quick.
Yeah, you bleed out pretty fast.
Correct. So if I look at that and I understand I can get 40% back to my business, that comes in the form of cash that I don't have to pay out to the IRS in April of every next year. That is true cold hard cash that sits on my balance sheet in the form of my checking account that I can go redeploy to ultimately scale my business quicker, hire more people, because I'm a huge believer that like your entire existence as an entrepreneur is designed to build a business, a value creation machine around your zone of genius, and then delegate to create jobs for other people that have positions that light them up, that don't light you up. Mm-hmm. So like you're putting yourself in a zone of creative genius, generating value in the form of money where people pay you to perform that value. And then you delegate so that you can put food on other people's plates. And that's how our economy works if we do it in that form of entrepreneurship, which I'm a believer in. And so with that, being able to not pay 40% back to the government gives me more cash to hire and grow a lot quicker. So if we look at it in that lens, and my subconscious is programmed to believe that, then I start to think of more opportunities to save money in taxes. And I can do that while still building wealth through assets, which I'm happy to talk about more on this episode, or we can talk about it another time. But yeah, that's my thought.
Well, I love that. There was so much. And as you're talking, I'm even adding things to the list that we talked about earlier. Or what are some of those principles? Do the work that you're called to do. Don't do the work of everybody else that everyone else is called to do. Like, do you. God put things in you, talents, gifts, abilities, and we water it down. And I did it for years too. You know, sometimes you get in different groups, you're looking at what everyone else is doing in your industry. And this is why, again, I love being disruptors in our industry, because it's like we're not doing it the way everyone else is doing it. Do it different, right? And then build the people. To me, that's really what we're here for. Build the ecosystem where people can thrive. So I love that. Yeah, we should probably have another conversation around wealth building strategies. But I think it's so funny because so many people, we just don't have the strategy in place. We don't have the foundations in place. And again, I have seen, in the back end of what I'm doing, I've seen people have 9-figure companies that are bleeding out millions and millions and millions of dollars. And it feels amazing to your ego to say, okay, we've got a 9-figure business, or we've got hundreds and hundreds of employees. But if the business is just bleeding, we got an ego problem, and we've got a slow death of the business problem, right? And sometimes it's like you got to kill that ego to slim it back down. One of my favorite things is simplify before we multiply. Simplify before we multiply, right?
Yep. So well said. I think, I forgot who I was talking with, but simplification. Oh, it was Jason Selk. If you're familiar with Jason Selk, he's a high performance coach to like all these NFL teams, some of the biggest entrepreneurs in the world. And the entire design of entrepreneurship is to really just simplify. The best entrepreneurs, they are the best at simplifying things. But yeah, to your point, like a lot of people think that larger numbers equals larger amounts of success. But being able to see it on the front lines, like you and I have been able to do and work closely with the founders, sometimes the founders of 9-figure companies are the most stressed out and broke individuals I've met.
Yes, it's crazy.
It is for sure. So that's where like I'm very, very meticulous with how I go about building my own companies and how I go about advising my clients, because your financial health is it's just as important as your physical health in the space of running your company. Being able to, especially if you run a company based on like recurring revenue, which I'll only run businesses based on recurring revenue because I love the idea of being able to predict out my cash flow. At this point in time, on the first of the month of every single month, 90% of my fixed operating expenses are already covered. That is a really healthy place to be in, because every dollar I make on top of that is pure profit and allows me to invest accordingly into my business, knowing that I have enough runway in cash flow to actually not run out of money. Very, like, simply put, like, I know I can scale my company strategically, knowing that, like, when you first hire an employee, there's a negative ROI on that because it costs a lot of money to train, onboard that person. But I know if I have enough runway to weather that virtual storm in the first couple of months, that employee, the right one, should be multiplying that in new cash flow over time and securing me more revenue. And so once we start thinking about those mechanisms, which most entrepreneurs don't because they're just in survival mode, which is fine, which is why we exist, that's when we can start to create enough financial health, because ultimately, like, you may not want to sell for $1 billion, but you want to be able to go attend your kids' play without wondering if you need to be on this meeting, those types of things. Yeah. That's really what we're doing, is trying to create a financial freedom engine. And it's a lot closer than you think, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I love it. And it aligns with what we're doing too. Freedom is our thing. We're pointing everybody in that direction. Physical freedom, mental freedom, relational freedom, time freedom, location freedom, financial freedom, all of it. I believe freedom is our state. Again, that's what we're called into. We're not called into slavery. A lot of people are slaves to their businesses. A lot of people are slaves to the clock. A lot of people are slaves to their money. I mean, I even, in my previous life, when I was married before, I was in a very wealthy family that had a ton of money, and they were all slaves to the money. So it's not just we need more money. If you're a slave, everything just feels heavier, right? The yoke gets heavier, the burden feels heavier, and the cattiness and everything else. But I think it just makes us more of who we are. So I just wanted to make sure that we circled back to that. If you're listening to this and maybe you're feeling suffocated by your business, or maybe you're just feeling like, oh my gosh, overwhelmed, I really want you to go back and listen to a little bit on simplify. I really want to challenge people, like, what feels really heavy? What feels really clunky and slow? That's one of the questions Mark and I have been asking ourselves a lot. And even as we look at our offers, as we go out to market, we're changing our offers. We're looking at innovative ways to deliver our services so they're not as slow, right? To have to get people on group calls and different things like that. But that's one of the questions we're asking ourselves, is like, what if this was way simpler, cleaner, more efficient, lighter, more fun, right? Where is all this unnecessary complexity? And we sometimes fall in love with we keep stacking systems on top of systems and doing things we've always done. And we're like, it's time for, like, just dismantle that thing. Anyways, as we start to close out, obviously you've got a podcast called Consistency Wins. I asked you, what are you most excited about? You said you've got 6 companies. Just as we wrap, kind of say a little bit more about that. What's the structure? People can come and work with you. I know you're doing tax strategy and planning and stuff like that, but what's the ecosystem look like?
Sure. So the front end facing, most people come to us for the consulting relationship.
Right.
That is our front end process, where we're going to find all of the problems that under the financial umbrella that you need. And we're going to go identify those problems, and then we'll go implement the strategies to actually solve those problems. A lot of the times we have to do that with outside people because we don't own the companies that do that. I've started to bring a lot more in-house so that we can provide it, one, to control the process, because a lot of people in the financial services industry are very slow at what they do. That's one thing that I can't live with, is people not having a sense of urgency in service-based businesses. I can't do it. I'm sorry. So that's why I had to buy more companies to solve that problem. Part of it's because I'm from New York. So the rest of the world doesn't operate.
You like it yesterday.
Then also, We basically want to create a one-stop shop where we don't have to run those companies as profitable, and we could truly run it almost at cost to just be a value add for the consulting firm, so that clients can truly experience that one-stop shop, what we call a fractional family office, where all you have to do as a founder is focus on generating revenue while we do all the other BS that comes along with it. And so that's where a lot of those other companies have been vertical integrations as value adds, like benefits, payroll, accounting, cost segregation, like real estate tax strategies, all these types of things that I'm super fired up about. And then we're launching our coaching program in the next 6 months as well. Just because like I've had to say no to so many people. Like our client archetype are service-based business owners that are doing above $2 million a year in revenue. There are incredible people that are a little bit below that. That does not make you a terrible person because you don't fit that mold. But I can only take 8 to 10 new clients a month maximum before breaking our system, which I'm not looking to do to like, I want to continue to serve my clients. As you know, we're very on top of our communication. So with that, I'm going to create a coaching offer where I can give all of the advice. I just don't have to focus on my team actually going to implement that advice for you, but at least have the access to all the intellectual property. So that's something that's going to be coming over the next 4 to 5 months as well. Nice. We're thinking about potentially doing it in the form of like 90-day sprints where it's like cohorts quarterly. That's something that we're working through, but maybe I'll bounce it off you because you're the guru there. So
we do a lot of different things, and I've run a lot of models. I have been in coaching since 25 years. You know, I remember launching back in the day when I opened my performance studio up in Canada. It's like that small group training wasn't even a thing. You know, it's like I invented it in the area, like small group, semi-private personal training. And it was just awesome. It was a great model too. I gotta say, it was a great business.
I'm just scared. I'm scared I'm going to love it so much that I'm not going to want to go back into the diligent agency work that we're doing right now.
I think it's fun, but you like building businesses, right? So, and I'm right there with you because we often think about that too. Like we actually can't coach everybody at the way we want. That's why I'm passionate about books. You know, I was talking to my assistant this morning. I'm like, we got 4 books already in the hopper that have been courses and things that we've done that were like, I just said to her, like, these all need to be books. Like this is again, because if somebody can't even afford the coaching program, y'all, if you can't afford a $30 book, then we got a problem because people are getting takeout and saying they can't afford books.
More to the point as to why you need to read the book because the mindset isn't there. And that's where it's like books from heart-centered individuals like yourself, that is a way to have an evergreen thing that one stamps your legacy, but then 2 is a low barrier to entry for people to really get value. But then from a tactical business perspective, that book is a huge part of your funnel at the end of the day.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And in a perfect world, that's what I'm trying to do is lengthen my sales cycle to where people have been exposed to me for years before they actually come to us because your cost of acquisition goes down significantly, virtually free. People pay you to become clients over time too. Yeah. That's what we're looking to create.
Yeah, same. Love it. So good. All right. One of the questions I often ask when I'm having guests as we close out is, I'm a big fan of neuroscience and just upgrading belief systems. I'm a big believer in renewing our mind every day. We talked about reading books. We talked about different things. And, I always say wisdom can be earned one of 2 ways. One, it can be imparted because you actually listen to someone who went before you and you receive the wisdom and you apply it. The second one is you earn it going through really hard things and making a lot of mistakes. And both ways are fine. Some people need to go through the lessons a lot before it becomes wisdom. But I always like to say, if you could plant a chip in somebody's brain with the one piece of wisdom that really was a game changer in your life, and maybe you've already said it on the show, but if you could just imagine you had 30 guys sitting in front of you, you're like, I'm just going to put this chip in your brain and you're going to have this instant download and it's just going to be your new operating system. What is it?
Well, I'd love to hear other people's answers because I could definitely use the advice. For me, what has helped me is understanding I already have what I need and I've already had it always, especially once I've leaned into my relationship with God. And I know it sounds cliche, but I think a whole part of why we're doing what we're doing and the root purpose of it is like you spin yourself in this circle all the time. Is you're performing, you're constantly achieving more, only to realize you had everything you needed the entire time. Yeah. For me, it's like the only thing I ever need, like all I'm doing all this for so that I can sit in my house in like a beautiful library next to a fire reading a fiction book. It's a very hyper specific thing, but that's my flow state. I love that. I can recreate that right now. I don't need to be a billionaire to do so. That doesn't mean I don't want to build wealth, but understanding what your flow state looks like. And I think where a lot of people go wrong is, and I was writing about this today, it's going to be in my book, is a lot of people try and make that come to them, where it's like, I'm trying to figure out, that's what probably my least favorite thing. One, the word try in general is annoying to me. But then two, everyone's like, I'm going to let it, like, I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to figure out my life and let it come to me. It's like, the way that you find out what you want in your life is by taking enough action to find out a bunch of things you don't want, to then eventually find out what is actually keeping me in flow state. Over time, what you come to find is that as you evolve as a human and you become a more purposeful human, a purpose-driven human, you bring passion and purpose to whatever activity. So it really never ended up being the activity. It ended up being recreating the person that you are. Yeah. And in the pursuit of that was actually the goal the entire time. Mm-hmm. So the pursuit was the most fun, because how many times have we gone through, trying to win a goal just to be kind of like disappointed when we actually achieved the goal because it probably wasn't big enough. We wanted more. The pursuit of it was actually the fun, something that I can reflect on looking at all the crap that I went through. So being a purpose-driven human and bringing passion to that is actually the passion and the result. And so once you realize that and truly let that ingrain, a lot of times you have to go through failure to realize that. But if I can help you just through this by saying you have what you need and it's already right there, just meditate on it. That's been huge for me. So
yes, so good. Contrast provides clarity. Contrast provides clarity. Do enough things that you're like, oh, that's a hell no. That's a hell no. And you'll be so clear on what your yeses are. So I agree with all of that. You guys, if you enjoyed this show, make sure that you pass this along right now. Forward this to somebody else that's coming to mind that needs to hear this message. As always, love to hear your reviews. Make sure that you guys subscribe. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you to everybody listening. I read those reviews. I love to know what you guys want to hear more of. So, Antonio, thank you for being here with us. And also thank you for just having a great team that's offering great service. We're so happy. That was a great decision for us to come work with you guys. Totally. I'm hard to please, you guys. I'm just saying, like, I am hard to please. I have a high standard of excellence. I would say people say that to me a lot. You are really hard to please. And that's true. And so that is a compliment, because I'm like, I like working with people that are easy to work with and make my life easier, not more difficult. So, we appreciate it.
I appreciate that. That means the world.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, guys, until next time, here's to loving fiercely, leading courageously. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now.